Hello guys, welcome to another video. Rimuru x Eminence in Shadow by elite3532. Chapter 16. Just I won't post regularly. I honestly don't have to justify myself, but oh well, an employee of where I work is on vacation, so I had to take more shift to cover the work. So I basically do 7 AM to 11 PM every day, so well don't have the midden to write after 10 hours of work, and yes I does have some break between. Anyway, this chapter just complete my next gotcha reaction, that's all. Third Pav slowly walking up the Crimson Tower, the small trio Rimuru, Claire and Mary encountered little to no trouble. At some occasions they could feel the ceiling shake indicating some action above. They didn't care and just continued as Rimuru followed the magic presence of the Blood Queen. She wasn't moving and stayed the whole time in the same exact room at the top of the tower. In fact, Rimuru could feel only a part of her presence, as if her resurrection isn't complete yet. Unfortunately, their way up couldn't be calm as the hole on their right suddenly exploded with a giant human coming out. He was tall, at least twice the size of Rimuru or Mary, which could be considered tall in normal human standard. The newcomer was Juggernaut, the monarch of the Black Tower. Juggernaut. Hey, I got lost, but it seems I found something interesting. Smirking, he glared down at the trio with craziness. With a single glance, and anyone could tell this guy was a brute who prioritized strength and muscle over intelligence. Mary. Juggernaut the tyrant, be careful, he is one of the monarchs of the lawless city and possess absurd strength. Rimuru. A monarch, huh? Juggernaut. What, are you scared now? Pathetic. Chuckling, Juggernaut neither knew Rimuru or what he was capable of. He just thought he was a weakling, and the fact that the tyrant wasn't proficient in magic made it worse. He couldn't feel the massive presence Rimuru was releasing as passive with his magic. And unfortunately for him, Rimuru wasn't as patient as he normally is. The presence of the Blood Queen was increasing, indicating that the ritual is almost done. Rimuru had no time to lose here. Rimuru. Get out of my way before I make you. Juggernaut. Without any warning, Juggernaut felt a heavy blow connecting his stomach. In a single instant he was sent back in the wall he came out of. Mary once again witnessed the blue-haired absurd strength and just winced feeling the blow despite not being the one receiving it. Rimuru. Let's continue now. Also, the Blood Queen should start cleaning this tower. There is a lot of trash running around. Claire. He sure was big. Without any other word, they continued their way up. The closer they got, the stronger the Blood Queen's presence became. This continued until the trio arrived in front of a large door. Behind was their goal, but it seemed they weren't alone. Yukime. My, it seems I wasn't fast enough, or perhaps it's just you who are too fast. Rimuru Kaganu, the harbinger of destruction. Rimuru. Is that a new nickname? Well, not like I actually care. The two faced each while Claire and Mary stayed a few steps behind Rimuru. Rimuru. You can come out too, Beta. Beta. So you noticed me, as expected I guess. Appearing out of nowhere, actually the shadow of the corridor they were in, Beta came out. Her silver hair and naturally large breast covered in Shadow Garden's slime suit were recognized by everyone. Yukime. Shadow Garden, huh? It seems a few big shots deemed this interesting. Rimuru. Anyway, what is your goal, Yukime? Depending on your answer I will or not let you enter this room. Unsheathing his sword, he pointed it at the foxwoman. The said person smiled smugly and covered her face with her sleeves. Yukime. Well, I just want the Blood Queen gone. You see, a few of my girls were assaulted by the ghoul outside. Rimuru. I see, then you can leave. I will take care of her myself. Yukime. Fufu, you think I will trust you that easily? The tension rising a little, Rimuru's eyes suddenly narrowed as he turned toward Beta. Rimuru. And it seems you're on your feet again, Shadow. Shadow. So you also noticed my presence? Coming out at his turn, the tension increased tenfold as everyone present could basically see the magic flowing out of Rimuru's body. Rimuru. So what are you guys doing here? He also noticed the few numbers behind Shadow but decided to ignore it. Princess Rose, now known as 666, is also there. Beta. We don't want anything from you. Our goal this time is the Blood Queen's blood. Rimuru. I see, as long as you stay out of my way. He glared at Shadow for a moment before turning toward the door. A wave of magic then bursted, announcing the end of the ritual. The small group outside exchanged some glances before Rimuru took a step ahead and opened the door. Immediately, he gripped his sword tight and parred 3 sort of blood blades. Rimuru. What a warm welcome. In front of him was the Blood Queen, Elizabeth. A beautiful girl who seemed to be in her 16. Along that long red hair and crimson eyes color. The girl just stared at Rimuru emotionlessly before raising her arm, starting another offense. Rimuru. Well, it seems you won't allow any talk. Scanning the room, Rimuru noticed Crimson. The vampire who did everything to resurrect his queen. He was on the ground lifeless. Rimuru. It also seems Elizabeth isn't conscious of her allies and enemy, she will just kill anyone on her way. Lifting his arm, he also charged his attack before launching it. The two spells then connected, creating a strong wind. The people behind Rimuru protected themselves as to not get carried by the violent wind. But things couldn't continue and stay like that as Rimuru's vision started to get blurry. His eyes still on Elizabeth, he started to see double and his heart hurted. The spell he was still launching weakened, and this was noticed by the other. Slowly Rimuru conscious black out as he put a knee on the ground. His breath accelerated as he put his last strength protecting everyone. Claire. Ni-san. What is happening? Claire was the first one to react. As for the other, they were shocked to see Rimuru going down like that. Their guess was that the Blood Queen has an attack that absorbs life force. But with Rimuru down, their fight is gonna turn harder. Or so they thought. Shadow. Cuckoo, I guess it's my turn to shine. Beta. Shadow-sama. Walking up, Shadow versus Elizabeth was going to start. Coming back to Rimuru, he found himself in the same void place where he first discovered memories of a past life. Rimuru Pav, I am back here, now of all time. Seriously, I hope Claire is fine, though Shadow is there so. Anyway, getting on my feet, I started walking on an invisible floor. I still don't quite understand this place or space, but the overall feeling is like being immersed deep inside the ocean but at the same time flying high in the sky. I walked for a few minutes, hours, or maybe just seconds. I couldn't really figure it out. But ultimately, I managed to find my way to the padlock, sealing my memories. My hand subconsciously reached it and mysteriously I found myself able to unlock it. Moving on their own, the padlock was opening by itself. My eyes widened as slowly information entered my mind. Flashback: I stood in the middle of the throne, laying my back on one of the many pillars waiting for my sister Aurora to come back. Our father the king was ill, so I'm pretty much the one attending to all the business now. Thought this is hidden from the population so as to not cause any panics. Rimuru. Ah, I wonder how it went for her. Those priests are really annoying to deal with. I honestly didn't give them much attention, but this method cannot go on any longer as they had discovered something strange. A sort of dark matter or I don't really know, but it sure is something otherworldly. Since then, the church gained more support and attention as this dark matter proved itself useful and could act like a drug. Increasing one's ability tenfold, it can act on mana and physical ability directly. This naturally attracted the greed of many, including some enemy kingdom. Aurora. I'm back. Snapping out of my thoughts, I looked up and saw Aurora teleporting in. She is a pretty talented mage and I'm proud of that. On top of her looks, she is also very smart and is my greatest help in the kingdom management. Rimuru. Finally, so, how was it, Aurora? Annoying. Anyway, I inspected but didn't really find anything, sorry. Rimuru. Hey, I thought you would be able to get something as they categorically forbid my visit. I am by the strongest knight and being in the kingdom actually. I can sound arrogant stating that, but it's the truth. The Nebula royal family has a very special particularity. A power that was mysteriously granted to our family thought only by a pair of siblings millennia before awakening this power. Everythingness and nothingness. We don't know what the condition is to awaken these two powers, but me and Aurora managed it. I possess everythingness while she has nothingness. The two of us are like a perfect duo to rule this kingdom. Aurora. It's not that I couldn't find anything but that there was nothing to find. Rimuru. Huh? Aurora. The origin of the demon ore is unknown even for the Pope. Rimuru. Unknown, huh? Then do you think this ore might really come from another world? Aurora closed her eyes and took her time answering. A few months ago, we achieved with a team of scientists a portal to another world. Well, not really a portal, more like a rift that was open for 10 seconds, but we still get the confirmation of otherworldly existence. The rift was leaking out a massive chaos energy as if everything laying behind was death and despair. Rimuru. I have a theory. Does you think it's possible that the world behind that rift was a destroyed world? Aurora. What do you mean, Rimuru? Perhaps, the demon ore is just matter corrupted by the other world, and leaked into ours accidentally? Aurora. That's possible. This is the most logical theory, as such a powerful ore couldn't have gone unnoticed for so long. Rimuru. So, do you think we need to take any action? Aurora. We should just erase the church, everything would be settled in a one go. She smiled smugly, placing her hand on her hips. She was serious with her proposition. I signed and lightly hit her head with a chop. Aurora. Itai, Oni-chan is so mean. Rimuru. That's for giving absurd ideas. The church is important politically, also most of the population believe in those deities created by the church. What I mean is that if we remove them now, the population would split into two groups and a civil war might happen. And now they got the demon ore. Their influence increased greatly, and eliminating them would push the other kingdom to send spy and random raids to steal the demon ore. Aurora. So what do you propose? You were always the master strategist among us. Rimuru. We need to take care of the demon ore before it goes out of control. Aurora. I see, then I guess I can continue acting like I support them. I only nodded. I didn't like seeing my sister hanging out around those priests, as they obviously were led by greed. Aurora then turned her back ready to leave, but before she could I raised my voice one last time. Rimuru. Be careful. Her body froze before turning to me. Her hand behind her back, she bent forward a little and smiled brightly. Aurora. You really know how to touch my heart. I will, so don't worry, Oni-chan. Her eyes closed. I returned the smile and approached her. Those moments were pretty common years ago, but now I have to attend my duty as the prince. Aurora is still 17 but already helps me and is more efficient than anyone, but because of this, we have less time together. Aurora. But, can you promise me one thing? Rimuru. Sure. Aurora. I will directly interact with the church and this demon ore. You already noticed, but this ore gives off a very dark and demonic aura. I nodded, starting to understand what she meant. Aurora. If I were ever to turn wrong, I want you to kill me. Her voice turning serious, her purple eyes stared right into mine, the tension raised slightly. But at the end, I nodded. Aurora is a user of nothingness. No one beside me will be able to stop her. And if she really goes down and gets corrupted, then talking won't be a solution anymore. I would have to kill her before she threatens the world. Aurora. I knew I could count on you. Her smile returning, she backed away and activated NER teleportation spell. A few magic circles appeared below her. Aurora. Anyway, I need to go now, so see you soon. Rimuru. Yeah. This was our last interaction before she left. Later that month, Aurora bring me 3 little girls from the church. They were a failed experiment that the church decided to dispose of. Those girls were originally destined to be weapons for the church. They used the demon ore to enhance their body and ability but ultimately failed. Despite those 3 girls being geniuses in their own category, they still failed to meet the priest's expectations. And so before they were thrown in the trash to die, Aurora took them secretly and got them under me, who is one of the only people that can protect them from the church. Their influence increased at a scary rate, and so their greed. The 3 girls were originally prisoners, elf, human or beastkin. The church had a very large prison where they stocked those prisoners and picked whenever needed some subject to experiment on. Anyway, right now I was staring at those 3 girls eating their breakfast. I was pretty lonely as our mother was no more and father was ill. The maids or servants don't dare approach me, saying that I'm way too majestic and out of their reach. Aurora is busy, so having some company is not bad. Rimuru. You 3. As I simply voiced those 2 words, the 3 girls flinched and looked at me with some fear. I paused for a moment before closing my mouth. They suffered so much that they can't even hear someone calling them out? This is really sad, and my disgust toward the church just grew. Rimuru. Don't be scared, I'm on your side. I reassured them with a gentle smile, though it managed to calm them a little. They still watched me with wariness. Rimuru. So what's your name? At my question, they looked at each other confused before returning their eyes toward me. The oldest of the tree then spoke up. We don't have names. Rimuru. Oh, then how were you called at the church? 333, 444 and 555. By numbers, huh. So there are at least 555 prisoners and potential subject from their experience. Rimuru. I see. I looked at them sadly, not even having a name. Their childhood robbed, and now their body composition isn't even normal. Rimuru. Then how about I give you all a name? They all looked up at me confused. This is probably the first time someone showed them kindness. I approached them and bent my knee until I was on the ground. Slowly my hand reached for their head as I patted them. Rimuru. You're the oldest, so your name will be Freya. I named the human girl Freya as it has a nice sound, beside her jet black hair and purple eyes fit well. I then turned toward the elf girl who stared at me with curiosity, the previous fear totally gone. Rimuru. You will be Olivier. I don't know why, but this name just naturally came out of my mouth. And the last one, the Beast King girl. Rimuru. And you are now Lily. From this day onward I want all of you to consider me as your family. Spreading my arm, I took them all in a big hug. Perhaps it's the emotion of finally having a name or someone to love them. But they all started to melt into tears, their small hands grabbed onto my shirt, they cried all the pain and sadness. From that day onward, those 3 girls lived with me at the castle. I didn't consider giving them back to their respective race as they would surely just be rejected for being different. After some time, they asked me to train them. Olivier was a sword prodigy, Lily a beast with her arm and fist. And lastly Freya was a genius for magic. I had over time understood that they weren't failures, the church just didn't train them well, their enhanced ability allowed them to progress at a scary rate. And after only a few years, they had become strong enough to survive by themselves. I was now 28 and the girls 16, my sister 24. Everything was going well, or so I thought. The research on the demon ore increased and finally it bursted. During one of the experiments, Aurora was there to watch out if anything went wrong. And it did. As the ore became unstable, my sister tried to get rid of it with nothingness, but even that didn't work, no. Instead it fused and corrupted her magic. She had no other choice but to absorb it before it went wild and started rampaging, and this is how her body transformed. She grew wings, her face turned horrific, her body became rough. She became the demon Diabolas. A monster that the church couldn't control, and it started to destroy everything. It has no will, no emotion, no consciousness. And this is how I was now on the battlefield outside the Nebula Kingdom, staring at the gigantic demon walking toward me. The land was on fire and it was clear that its next target was Nebula, and I couldn't allow that. Forming Oblivion into my hand, I got ready to fulfill this promise I made years ago. I will put an end to this demon myself. Rimuru. Nova Requiem. Starting, I sent out a large range slash toward the demon. It didn't have the time to react and was cut in half. But as expected, it wasn't enough, as in a single instant, it regenerated. I furrowed my eyes and this time started to run toward it. I was fast enough to reach my destination in a matter of milliseconds, and once there I sent out a few quick slabs. Rimuru. Stellar Domain. A simple technique consists in encircling a target inside an imaginary dome, and then use everythingness to analyze the information before destroying it. The problem of this spell was that I needed some time before deploying. And Diabolas catched on to that and used this short lapse of time where I was vulnerable to crash his giant arm into me. I barely had the time to cover myself and suffered a few bone breaks and organ failure. But it's fine, everythingness allows me to bring back my lost organ and heal my injuries. I slowly got up, struggling as Diabolas started to gather nothingless energy. He was absorbing the environment mana and used it to reinforce himself. Everything went toward his mouth as lava started dripping. He was going to unleash an attack that will wipe out this part of the world. I can't let him do that. With all my strength left, I got up and at my turn condensed everythingness into the palm of my right hand. Rimuru. You want to go all out? Fine, I'll humor you a little. Our attack respectively charging, we soon launched it at the same time. My Nova Breaker and his pure red beam. The sheer destruction generated from the impact blasted the surroundings away. Our attacks evenly matched as none could take the advantage until I started pushing him down. My Nova Breaker taking the advantage, I slowly gained space as Diabolas was forced down. At the end, he was forced to withdraw and take my spell head on. Most of his body was disintegrated, but I ran out of energy before totally destroying him. I only had one option left, and it was to kill him with my sword. I approached him as fast as I could and started cutting his limbs. It was almost the end as all his arms, legs and organs were laying on the ground unmoving. I just had to cut its head and everything would be gone. I jumped high in the sky ready to thrust my blade into its head, but suddenly, multiple images flashed in my mind. The demon had tears. As he waited for death, he let out a few tears and a wicked smile. Aurora was still there. This realization made my grip weaker as I fell down at a fast pace. I didn't know what to do until I remembered my promise. I'll kill her with my own hand. Rimuru. Nova. As I started forming my next and final spell, the demon's mouth suddenly opened. The red energy beam inside was floating. Shit. I didn't overpower him before. He purposely kept the energy inside his mouth as the situation was going nowhere. Now he has all the remaining power he saved. Third paw of the beam charging before firing, Rimuru was forced to take it at his turn. His skin burned as he felt intense pain. But even in the middle of this, he was still casting his spell, Oblivion shining bright blue. His descent didn't slow down, piercing through the beam. At the same time, the three heroes Lily, Olivier and Freya arrived at the scene, weapon in hand. Their eyes widened in horror as they saw their father figure, teacher and model figure burn. They wanted to help, but the energy circulating in the atmosphere was going wild, making the usage of magic impossible. They would only watch Rimuru going down, until the tips of his sword reached the demon's head. But mysteriously the light of his sword stopped. Rimuru smiled as his body started disappearing. Particles escaped the crumble left from his body before getting burst into the beam. He looked down at Diabolas one last time, a fond smile forming on his face. Rimuru, no matter what you become, I'm always proud of you, Aurora. Just before he could kill him, Rimuru saw the reflection of Aurora, the smile on the face of Diabolas. She was conscious inside but couldn't do anything or control this body. Rimuru had his promise, but even so he wasn't able to kill the one he cherished above all. A life full of success with only a single failure. This was the life of Rimuru Nebula, now known as the Forgotten and Last Prince of Nebula. After that, Diabolas retreated to regenerate. Even if he would never be able to reach the same power he had, Rimuru damaged him forever. Olivier, Freya and Lily also went on their own way. The one they loved dead. They had joined their respective race after the destruction of Nebula Kingdom. One thing in their head, avenging Rimuru and killing Diabolas. They were even ready to help the church in doing so. Slowly, they lost their emotion for everything but this revenge. The only thing left in them were the moments passed with Rimuru. This helped them reach a power that they couldn't hope before, and ultimately they managed to beat and seal off a weakened Diabolas. Flashback end. Rimuru Pav. All this is the past and history of the world, huh? It sure is a lot to take in, but now I understand. I slowly opened my eyes only to see Shadow and Elizabeth readying their final attack. Shadow was his atomic power and Elizabeth was a spike of blood. I smiled and teleported between them. Rimuru. Okay. Stop right there, you two. Childish tantrum can't go that far, you brats. Shadow. You. Elizabeth. They were already in and their attack dangerously approached me. However, my smile never left as I stopped and nullified both of their attacks. Space realm. Marking the surroundings inside a dome, I could cancel, create, destroy everything. I looked toward the other present and saw Claire unconscious, Mary holding her, Yukime shocked and Shadow Garden members on their knees weakened. Now, let's the true story begin.